Hey, what's up? It's Austin here from Falter Media Company. I'm a brand videographer, and today I'm going to walk you through some of the creative decisions behind a stop motion ad I recently created. We're going to go through editing tips and tricks for stop motion specifically, messaging for brand videos, and a bit more like sound effects and visual effects that you can use in stop motion. So I say it's stop motion, but there was a few clips in there that actually aren't stop motion. Most of it is, however. So I'm gonna play the video, it's 45 seconds, watch it, and then we're gonna jump right in. First thing first, let's talk about stop motion editing basics. So right when you get into your project, you're gonna have a ton of photos with stop motion, right? You're taking photos instead of videos. And each photo, you want to become a couple frames of video. And that way you get that jittery look where rather than filming in like 24 frames a second, we're gonna be looking at it in maybe 12 or 10 frames a second. I like to use 12, it's about half of the normal. So it's still a little better than like 10, some people do 10, but it gives it that jittery look. You go to your preferences and then timeline settings. Now, once you're in the timeline settings, the still image default duration, you want to change that to 2 frames. And what that's going to do is when you drag photos in, like we're going to drag these 6 photos into a timeline here, and automatically it sets the default duration of those clips to 2 frames each. And so this is 1 second, and you can see there was only 6 frames, which means it's taken up about half that second if I'm at 24 frames a second, right? So there you go, you already have a little bit of stop motion going on here. That's what you want to do, is to set that default duration to 2 seconds so that you can just drag your clips in and you don't have to like tune them all down. They're just automatically already at that 2 frames a second. If it seems too fast, you can change that still image duration to like 3 or 1 frame. But I really like the 2 frames because then it's 12 frames a second and it still gives it a lot of jitter. The next thing you're gonna wanna do is highlight all your clips and nest them, which basically puts them in a folder. So we can say sequence 1. And now this is sequence one, and I can add effects to it like I would a video clip. And if I want to add more scenes, I can just highlight all of them and turn them into nested sequences. What's really nice about having nested sequences is then you're treating them almost like a video clip, and you don't have a million images in your timeline, right? You just have maybe 4 nested sequences instead. Anytime you want to edit your nested sequence, you double tap on it, and then you can go in and edit little frames individually if you need to. So the next step after this is I usually take out any frames that I feel are unnecessary, if it's moving too slow or if my hand ends up being in it, you know, if it's a mess up, I'll just quickly delete all those frames that I don't want, and that way it flows better. And for this ad specifically, my workflow was adding the music and picking what I wanted there, and then throwing in the sequences, edit to the music. After I finished that, I worked on color, animations, and then sound effects. So what are the types of shots that you can do with stop motion? I have 2 different shot types of stop motion in this video. And the first one is I shot in a sequential order, telling a story like when the truck comes and delivers. Or there's a few shots where I just have 2 frames repeated over and over again, and it gives it a really jittery and fun look. Or at the very end, I mix the 2, where at first it's jittery and repeated, but then they flow out and the logo comes in. And that's a mix of the continuous and the repetitive. Okay, now let's talk about what happens if you don't get enough frames. It's always better to take way more pictures than you need and then just delete the ones you don't need. At one point, I don't know why, I didn't take enough pictures for one of the sequences and it was a little too fast. And so what can you do to fix that? Well, sometimes you can't, but other times, in this case, I was able to. I'll show you what I did. So it was in this wave sequence here. You can see that it goes pretty fast, where the wave comes and splashes over. I didn't feel like I had enough frames. And so actually what I did is I started scaling up. You can see over here, it goes from 40% scale to 43, 45. So what I did is this frame and this frame are actually, let's see, these two frames are the same frame. And what I did is I zoomed in on one of, I duplicated it and then zoomed in and changed the positioning. And because I was zooming in this whole time, it makes it look a little bit more continuous. And so I feel like it saved this clip. I wouldn't have been able to use it without reshooting. But by just doing that positioning move, you're able to add a few frames here. Now, I couldn't have done that with maybe the chef walking because the tie is stationary and the chef is moving. Whereas with this video here, the whole thing is moving. And so it's a lot easier to mask out. That's one trick you can use on occasion. I don't know if any of my other clips I would have been able to salvage, but in this case, I was able to do that. Now let's talk about brand messaging. When you have a brand video that you're doing, you need to make sure that your messaging matches their vision. And so in this case, it was for a Kickstarter, and we wanted to really get across what this product is, what it does, and how it could benefit the user. Now, my style is very fast-paced and optimized for social media, but it's not always the best for conveying messages to do it fast-paced. And so even though my style and the video is fast-paced, the messaging you can see in my video, I really tried to keep it slow and with one concept at a time. So in that first clip, I have the product being delivered. The second clip says what the product is, tie bars with, and I felt like that revealed sooner tie bars with than the personality part. And I revealed that sooner because I felt like they would probably only have time to read that top part. And the next word I actually carried over into the next clip because I wanted them to have time to get that point across too. So we have tie bars with personality. You see what the product is in that, but then the next clip, you see the ties coming in and still the word personality. So you're starting to pick it up. First there's a product, and then you see it's a tie bar, and then it has personality. The ties are in there, and then that next clip says build with it on the tie, and it starts to come together. Oh, this would be awesome. Once those points got across, and I explained it in that first, 10 seconds, after that I was able to show a lot of different examples, and it was a lot better than just jumping into examples. I like the idea of slow messaging that has one concept at a time. I think it really helps with brand videos. I come from an advertising background, and one thing I always try to look at is features versus benefits. A lot of times people and clients are going to tell you the features of the product that are selling points. But the problem is people don't buy because of features, they buy because of benefits. And so what's the difference? Well, a feature is that this tie bar can have Legos placed on it. Okay, that's a feature. Legos can be placed on it. So you ask yourself, so what? So what? Well, that means that I can personalize it. So what? Well, that means I can have my team's football flag on my tie in Legos. So what? Oh, well, that means I can have pride at work and people can comment on it and they'll like it and I'll be the funny guy wearing Legos, right? And so you keep asking the question, so what, until you get to an emotional answer. And those are the types of things you want to convey with the video. And so if your so what talks about personalization, customization, right? In this case, that's what I was going for. Personalization, customization, and creativity, right? Those are the three things I was after. So what are ways I could communicate that? Well, the stop motion jitter helps it show that it's a little bit more playful. Using Legos, it's really easy to show customization, right? But I didn't want to just show that it can be placed on a tie. That's why I included the hat clip, for example. I wanted to show you can use this in all sorts of instances because creativity is the value. Even though it's a tie clip, I need to convey the value. And so I found a way to do that in the video. So always remember that. A feature is a thing, but a benefit is how people feel about it. A benefit is how it's going to directly impact their way of life. That's going to really help with your brand messaging in videos. There's 4 sections of animated wording that I used in my video. And I should shout out Austin Newman is where I got these word templates. They're very simple. And for a stop motion video like this, I think they're perfect. And so that flip up text you can download from Austin Newman's website. That's a perfect segue into animations and visual effects. Here's a breakdown of a few effects I used in the ad. The first effect, very simple, but a simple digital zoom helps draw focus to the tie clip and add a little bit of drama right at the beginning here. You do that by scaling the position and scale. Because my stop motion sequence is nested, I can just apply this effect directly onto the clip and I don't have to scale in each individual frame. The second effect in this sequence is the ties going over the personality text. So the way that I did that is you can see right here, if I hide these top layers, you can see the bottom blue layer is this clip of the ties being rolled out. Okay, and then this next layer up is actually a color grade to make the yellow match the yellow of the sequence before. This clip right here is that text. And as you can see, when you put text over a clip, that's what you're getting is the text is on top of this clip. But I didn't want that. I wanted the ties to roll over it. And so what I did is I added one more. I duplicated this layer down here and had just the ties. And the way that I got rid of the yellow is you go to this ultra key effect. If you go to your effects panel and drag it onto this clip, you can change the key color and the key settings. And basically it's like a green screen effect, but you use this on the yellow instead of the green. And it makes it look really cool in 3D because the ties are on top of the text. This effect is called a match cut, where one thing is staying in the center of the frame and the rest of the background is changing around it. So what we did is we changed the background, we changed the tie, but every picture we took, we tried to keep the tie bar right in the center of the frame, and that makes for a really cool effect. This customize effect is actually one of the favorite things that I did. If you open up this nested sequence, you can see that what I did here was actually add a text box. This is my frame, and this is a text graphic of the word customize. I wanted the word to move like the stop motion and give it that jittery feel. And so what I did is I actually lined up this top of the M with that umbrella right under the tie bar, and I moved, as the tie was moving up, I moved the text with it to line up with that umbrella. And it's not perfect, but I am glad that it's not, because it gives it this really neat jittery effect. It kind of moves with the video rather than just being animated. If I animated that text, it would move smoothly up, and I wanted it to feel like a part of the frame. So that's something you can do rather than animating something. If you change the position for every frame with your stop motion, it'll make the text look like stop motion as well. Last thing I want to talk about is sound effects with this stop motion ad. Before I jump into that, I'm new to YouTube, so go ahead and subscribe. It really helps me out, and there's going to be a lot more content coming in the future. So, sound design, let's talk about it. So for sound design, first here is a few clips of the video without the music and just the sounds. Sound played a huge role in not just the immersion, but the playfulness of this ad. I used sound to help tell the story, like when the truck was delivering the item, or like the splash of the wave. But with stop motion, I also used some effects that conveyed an emotion or movement, but not necessarily matched. So for example, that one clip where the tie bars are going back and forth, the sound effect I used there is actually a campfire sound effect. I felt like it conveyed the movement really well, even though it didn't add to the storytelling element, even though it wasn't realistic and didn't necessarily fit. When you're watching the video, it helps it flow and it helps that movement stick out because you're using that sound effect of a campfire that has a flickery sound. For specific editing tips on audio in Premiere Pro, I have a video about my 7 audio tips in Premiere Pro, so go ahead and check that out. That's all for today. I hope it helps. Leave in the comments if you have more questions or things that I should go into in the future, or questions about my brand video process. And thanks. We'll catch you next time.